What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. I'm BobbyFi, back with my man Eric Sheetshaber, and we are going to be doing a Draftkings show. I know we combined them yesterday. Today we'll have a Draftkings and we'll have a FanDuel for you. Also going to be on QLTV at 4 Eastern time. And we're going to do a quick recap of just some things that happened from yesterday. Both Sheets and I had pretty decent days, but, could have been better, but they were profitable days. Others are always good. I bought a car, so now we need to find a way for me to pay for it. So
Exactly.
Sheets, let's get into it, man. What are your thoughts about last night?
So first of all, yesterday, Terry Rozier chalk night, and actually all of Charlotte chalk night was interesting. I ended up playing very few lineups on both sites. I played like 10 lineups on Draftkings, 10 lineups on FanDuel, and I ended up like with some wild, I thought really good, well-constructed lineups with respect that I had a decent amount of chalk with all kinds of with crazy stuff in there. Like, for example, like Draftkings, my best performing lineup, which is in the spin move here, I almost got 300 points. Like you see, I had like the Rozier chalk and this other stuff, which didn't get there. But then I ended up with like a .08 Levert. As I wanted to run the Celtics back with somebody. So I went with Levert and unfortunately Terrain Prince. But dude, you give me Terrain Prince at 0.2% ownership.
Absolutely. That I saw that. I don't care even that it didn't work.
I mean, I don't care about results.
Who cares?
And then I ended up with the money left and I was able to put in Anthony Davis and he ended up at 4%. And that was kind of fun with nobody else alive, just watching him just kind of rack up those points.
It could have been a lot bigger too, even for him. This could have easily, look, Terrain Prince has his normal 25. Anthony Davis keeps going and gets his 80.
Whatever.
Nerlens gets to 20, and all of a sudden you've got a tournament winner. And that sounds like a lot of things, but that's all. Yeah. Those are not far-fetched things from where the way they were playing out. So I really give you credit for the Levert play at 0.8%. I mean, that is we've been on Levert and we've gotten him at low ownership consistently, and you've pointed it out. I pointed it out at different times, but to get him yesterday was
the thing is, but thematically, and this is going to come into play tonight, is that when you have teams, whether it be Charlotte or the Celtics last night, with chalk value, you don't have to fade it. But what might be a decent idea is if you could find low-owned guys, and you're like the expert at this, to run back with the chalky guys on the other side, even if they project maybe not so great, you could really end up getting somewhere,
Yeah, that was the problem I made just real quickly on Draftkings last night. I won on FanDuel. I did not do well on Draftkings, and it was because I played 4 big lineups on draft, or 4 of the biggest ones they had that were regular, and I had Anthony Davis in 2 of them initially.
Wow.
And then I decided I like the runbacks way too much, and I'm not going to fade Bradley Beal, which, by the way, I mean, if we get 2 halves of Bradley Beal like we get the second half, of course that's a lot to say, but still.
He's gross.
You're down by 30 points, no problem. Bradley Beal will get you back in the game. I just love that guy. So I switched off of Davis over to him because I liked the runbacks better, and in doing so, it also forced me to run back people who didn't do well. So that was the issue for me, but I'm ready to move on tonight. I'm ready to start.
I'm going to hold off on talking about the FanDuel stuff until we do the FanDuel thing.
Sounds good.
So today, the big thing is the Celtics, right? We'll go game by game, but from an overall slate perspective, there are actually other teams besides the Celtics which have good value also. But the kind of the egregious value because of these injuries is going to be the Celtics, because I mean, I think I'm presuming, this is almost sick when you think about it, that Kemba and Hayward and Brown and Tatum are all out. I mean, that all hasn't been confirmed yet, but it seems as though that's where things are trending. And I think what's really bizarre for openers is that the game is still like a pick'em with all these guys out. So you can imagine, without even going through it until we get there, but there's a lot of Celtics are playable, in play, ranging from locks to playable and whatever. And then, as I mentioned earlier, be kind of nice to get Cleveland guys to run back. And what you're going to get as you look through this slate is 2.5 studs that become just so trivially easy to get in. You're going to have to figure out how much, again, like anything else, how much chalk you want to eat, where you want to pivot, whatever. But I do think the theme of this is how many Celtics is too many Celtics and which ones they are.
Yeah, so the Celtics have things to play for too, by the way. They're fighting for position. Like, if this was a team that was just completely irrelevant, I wouldn't be as interested as I am, but I'm super interested in a bunch of different angles in this game. I'm a little bit frustrated because they have a lot of bodies, and they'll use those bodies, which makes it a little tricky to peg. But trying to, we'll get into it game by game because that's one of the first games on the slate. But you're gonna have a hard. I don't know if you're gonna win without having at least one Celtic. I actually think as of right now, I'm sort of leaning to have two on pretty much most of my teams. But I also like the run back on the Cleveland side. So, we got into it the other night. You have a team that's got a lot of guys out with condensed usage on the Cleveland side. Yeah. And the biggest mistake I think people make in these situations is they overplay one team and underplay the other team. You want to hammer stack these kind of situations. So initially, I think you could build a competitive lineup with playing 6 players from that game. I just want to put it out there. But I don't necessarily think it's optimal on an 8-game slate where there's some other really good plays, and it's going to be somewhat chalky, especially on the Boston side. So let's get into it game by game. You want to start off with Indy and Milwaukee?
Yeah, so Indiana, Milwaukee. I don't like anybody from Indiana at all. On the Milwaukee,
Brogdon revenge.
Yeah, he's tried that already. I think his 2 games at Milwaukee, both of them. One of them, I think he left after 3 minutes. And then the other one wasn't so hot. I can't confirm that, but I'm pretty sure I played him both those games. I wasn't happy about it. He's way too smart and intellectual to be into revenge. Anyway, I don't like anybody from Indiana. Milwaukee, I like Giannis, and considering the outline of the slate, I think it's going to be very difficult for me to not play him in almost every lineup unless I really find some good middling build now that I can't find what I couldn't find when I first looked. So for me, Giannis is just an extreme priority. And again, just for the people that are not that don't watch this every day, I just want to review my thoughts on Giannis, even in these games with 11-point spreads. I feel as though he's sort of become an unfadable character in a way, unless the slate demands that you fade him, because he's just so efficient and his points per fantasy points per minute are so strong. What ends up happening with these 11-point spreads is they model him or project him for only 30 minutes or so because they presume they're going to blow out. So what ends up happening is if the blowout kind of happens, there's still a decent chance he gets there, at least from a median perspective, or you call it a floor, whatever you want to call it. But if the other team plays well enough to kind of hold him back a little bit, all that ends up happening is you end up getting 3 or 4 more minutes of him because the game is closer, and it's kind of a catch-22. So I'm kind of on that whole idea of a super stud that gets under-projected for minutes because his team is so good, to just keep playing him. So for me, I'm gonna just keep playing him unless you got a slate where there's a lot of good options and he's really chalky and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at.
I just want to stop you real quick and just interject, because I do think that you're going to get Giannis at lower ownership. I think people decide in these situations between a Luka and a Giannis. Now, if there's value, sure, they will play both of them. But this is Luka is going to be so popular tonight. I don't think that people are going to just naturally think, oh, I'm going to play Luka and Giannis. So I actually think Giannis ends up being a little bit lower owned in this slate. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but I think that there's just so many ways to get the 2 of them in together that it's going to be. That's what I think. I think there's just a lot of people going to do that. But starting with me, so we'll see what happens. I will say that I'm Milwaukee. It is kind of, again, and I almost fell into the same trap that I fall into. To see Bledsoe under 6K just does seem like a little appealing. But again, just because he's 5,900 doesn't mean he's that much lower than 6K. And the interesting thing is, if he gets really low owned because of the minutes that he's playing recently, people will look at his minutes, and he's been only playing like 22, 23 minutes, but you could squint and make excuses for why that's happened between back-to-backs and blowouts and stuff like that. So if you ever end up getting him under projected minutes-wise and, you get him really, really low owned, he might be a guy that pops one of these days. So I will just throw that in.
Yeah, I mean, so on the Indiana side for me, it's I actually do have a little bit of interest in Brogdon. Is there anybody in the DFS world that wins, ends up on more winning teams, but doesn't ever have a monster game?
It's pretty funny.
Steady guy who just always seems to get there.
It's pretty funny.
I think that's sort of he and a little bit of Sabonis would be the most of my interest. I actually kind of like Sabonis. If this game stays close, I wouldn't mind running either of those guys back with Giannis, but I don't think you necessarily need to. I'm with you on the Giannis idea. I think that he's easy to get in today. I really like him as always. You pretty much are just fading blowouts and the occasional foul out, like what happened against Washington the other day. I don't think there's anything really to worry about, like with him getting, like he's going to get 55 fantasy points, especially in a game that, while this game has a spread on it, this is a competitive team. Like, it's not like Indiana just goes around getting torched all the time. I know they did once this year, but they have a really solid competitive team. I think they bring their game, and I think it's enough to make Giannis one of the better plays on the slate. I do think that Chris Middleton and Bledsoe are both interesting, and I have a sneakier one who I really like, which is, I think I'm reaching on this, so I need you to talk me down from it maybe a little bit, but I really like Brook Lopez. This is the perfect kind of matchup for a guy like him in a way, because you have a team that has to play big, so you probably have upside on his minutes. They have two bigs out there. He's a guy who will stretch away from the basket, so obviously they'll put Turner on him, which Turner will do a decent job. He actually does guard people away from the basket fairly well. He's a good defender overall, but mostly it's an interior defense that you're worried about. I also think that along with Giannis, like Lopez, who doesn't rebound, is going to have to get some boards tonight. This is just a team that I don't know who else is going to. There's too much size on the Indiana side, so it may be a little bit of a long shot play, but at no ownership, I'm certainly willing to try him at 4.9. I'm still not sure where I prioritize him, but I do think the same thing is true for Middleton. Bledsoe, eventually, I agree, is going to break out. Until then, I'm just sticking with like the little bits of Bledsoe. I don't think it's just game script. I think that they are just like sort of taking it easy a little bit here and there. I think at this point, though, this is a game they really want to win because they've kind of played poorly twice in a row, and the totals have been way down, and they've been playing slower, but partly they're playing slow teams. There's a lot of things you could worry about, but mostly I think it's just safe to say play Giannis and then sprinkle in some Bledsoe, Middleton, and Lopez. But Lopez, by the end of the day, I might be a little bit higher on him than I am even now because I do believe in him in this matchup.
Well, I will give you something to look forward to. I mean, it's like 100 games from now, but Lopez could end up being a really, really sharp play if if Thomas Bryant doesn't play on the back-to-back and Moritz Wagner becomes like huge chalk at 3,200 or something like that, then, if you can get Lopez in there at 4,900 as a pivot off of him in an otherwise kind of familiar chalky lineup, I think that the center position is one there. If you could find a cheaper guy like Lopez, that'll give you some pretty decent leverage possible. And who knows, maybe Tice or Cantor, depending on how that shakes out, could get a lot of ownership also.
We'll get into that. That's the reason. That's the anti-Lopez or play both these guys together because I've got a little bit of a hot take on that game, and we'll get into that next. All right.
So no reason to wait any longer. Let's go to it. So Boston and Cleveland. All right. So here's my view on it. So just to read off the names: Marcus Smart, Brad Wanamaker, Javonte Green, Daniel Tice, Enes Kanter, Grant Williams, I guess. And that's where I'll go. And I don't know if I'm ready for Ojale or Carson Edwards, but there's certainly no reason why they can't do things also. I was actually just watching some highlights of last year's Final Four a couple of days ago with Carson Edwards. So you can't tell me the guy can't fill up the basket. But I think that I got to review my analysis yesterday when we were talking about the Charlotte guys. Is there are two kinds of guys in a situation like this. One is kind of like the good players. They're just going to get the extra usage, but their minutes are going to be maybe only a little bit increased. And the other types of guys are kind of the crappy players who are just going to get there because of extra minutes. And my first priority is getting the good players. And that's why I was really, really heavy on Miles Bridges yesterday. He was like fine, whatever it was. But that was like my main priority before going to those other guys. Yeah. And I like PJ Washington also. So for me, honestly, I know he's going to be really chalky, and I don't want to give actual numbers. I think Marcus Smart gets like 60 in this game. You know what I mean? I just think that if all those other guys are out, he's like just by far the best player on the court, and he's going to, probably be asked to play 36 minutes if they want to win the game and if it's close enough, one way or the other. So for me, that's just kind of the easiest thing to do is just to plug him in. And then the next guy is, again, this is more this worries me a little bit because it's more familiarity than anything else. So like I played Brad Wanamaker before. I've also faded him before. Like he's been kind of in my life before. So I'm just kind of familiar with him being a play in these types of situations. So he's projecting, to be a really good play, as is, Javonte Green a little bit, whatever. So I'm just a little bit concerned that Brad Wanamaker is just going to end up being just so overly owned relative to these other kind of bad players. And I know, maybe you can make the case he's not bad, whatever it is, but I whatever. I'm a little more concerned about eating insane Wanamaker chalk, but he certainly looks to be the next best play. And then I guess Javonte Green would be my next one. And then, I don't know where your take is on these two centers, but you can make a case for either of them. Cantor, it'd be the more speculative play, but he certainly has a hell of a lot of upside at 3,500. The only thing I would say is that with Cleveland having no Tristan Thompson,
do we know that for sure yet?
No, but that's what I'm presuming for the purposes of this analysis for now.
Okay.
If in fact there's no Tristan Thompson, and that's a really big deal, because if there is no Tristan Thompson, I don't think the Celtics have to play those guys that much. If you want to know the truth, I think they can go a little bit smaller. But with Tristan Thompson playing, I guess they have to play these guys. So, I mean, it's kind of a mess, but I don't think you can go wrong with being safe and playing smart, playing Wanamaker or Javonte Green, and even throwing in another guy. See, like this lineup here, I just put it in for fun, has like 5 Celtics in it. And I can certainly make that argument. I would certainly want to run that one back with the Cleveland guy, though. But I think that I would even go further than you. I would say that I can't even make a rule for minimum 3 Celtics. I mean, there's just so much to go around. Now, again, this all presumes that all those guys are out. You know what I mean? Like Brown and Tatum and all of them. Otherwise, then you have to kind of, pare it back a little bit.
Yeah, so really quickly, I just want to say, if you're going to play 150 lineups and you don't play Carson Edwards, there's something wrong with you tonight.
Ooh, there it is. Okay.
Carson Edwards and Enes Kanter, I think, provide the most upside versus ownership, if that makes sense. They're not going to be owned. This team is going to, so what's missing right here? They're missing all of their offense, every single bit of it. Even Marcus Smart is a guy who gets there for them, but they don't really run offense for him. But he can run. So I'm with you on Marcus Smart. Regardless of the field, I probably would be above the field on him, even at 7K. Wanamaker, I agree. Look, I'm going to have a lot of Wanamaker. It's going to be hard not to. He's going to play 30 minutes probably. Here's the issue. Where they're heavy right now is at guard. So they've got Wanamaker, Smart, Edwards, Green, Langford. These guys are all going to play minutes. So that could easily be spread out. So those Wanamaker struggling down 10-0 early, not necessarily even if he comes out, but maybe Carson Edwards gets in the game and hits a few threes, and then they bring in Langford a few minutes later off the bench, and all of a sudden the offense is humming. That I could easily see happening in this kind of a game. Or Javonte Green being the other one, you know what I mean? It could go different routes where it doesn't need to be Wanamaker getting all those minutes. I think there's upside for his minutes. I think there's downside for his minutes. I think it's just that's the way it is. With Marcus Smart, I don't think there's any downside with his minutes. I just can't see, unless there's I'm not going to ever plan for Cleveland to blow somebody out, so that's just not going to happen. I really like all these guys. I think Tice's projections are going to keep people off of him somewhat. I think they're way off. I really do. So if you don't I'm going to play one of Kanter or Tice in a lot of lineups because
that makes sense.
Kanter's upside is monstrous, and I mean you could easily get guys to 10x who are going to be unowned, and he and Edwards. Edwards, if you guys haven't watched this guy play before, he can light it up, and this is the first time he's ever going to have the chance. I might just go real heavy on him before and hope other people don't catch on to this. It could break his way in this kind of a game. And by the way, in addition to all this, Cleveland, the worst team in the NBA at defending the point guard position. Sort of the weird part is that all these guys are kind of point guards. They sort of have 5 point guards basically on their team. I don't know how their rotations are going to go. I'm curious to see what the starting lineup will be. But I definitely, and I like Tice. In order of actual ownership, now obviously Wanamaker is going to be the most chalky, but I still have him at the highest ownership of mine. But I still have below the field on him. I'll be above the field on Smart. I'll be above the field on everybody else in this game. I'll be way above the field on Carson Edwards. I'll be way above the field on Enes Kanter and Daniel Tice. regardless if Thompson plays or not, at some point it doesn't necessarily mean for Boston who do we have to match up with these guys in terms of Cantor and Tice. I think it's like in Cantor's case, like who are we going to run offense through? He is one of, I would say, the 2 or 3 most likely guys to get the offense. Like when he's in the game, he's going to get the work. Like I think he's going to get all the work basically. He's actually the one guy who you like if you're down 1 possession in a game and you want to go to somebody, he's probably the guy who makes the most sense. Even though Marcus Smart would tell you that even with all the Celtics healthy, he'd be the guy. I like Cantor a lot if he can somehow get the minutes, and I think it's possible in this matchup. I don't see Cleveland being able to exploit him or play him off the floor no matter what. So I'm very into him. And then on the other side, I'm very into the main guys.
So let's review who those are. So
Porter Jr., number 1, not even close. This guy's going to play 500 million minutes, and the coach keeps talking about it, and they love him. Now, he does some things out there that are a little bit funky. He looks like a guy like who's as young as he is, and he looks unlike a Zion who's young as he is and looks perfect. But he does a lot of good things out there too. He can get you steals, he can get you assists, he can get you rebounds. He's sort of a do's-all. And again, as much as we joke about how Utah's not the same defensive team, and they certainly aren't. Putting up 30 in a game where he plays poorly against Utah. Then he had a tough Indiana matchup before that. And now we have no Garland there obviously too, and no Drummond. I just feel like Porter is I like Porter basically as much as I like anybody on the Celtics. And then after that, it's Kevin Love, then followed by Sexton and Osman. But I actually might give Osman a little bit of a boost here. I watched a few plays the other night. It was interesting. Sexton was having a big game, and I don't know which way this will lean. Sexton and Osman were getting there was some tension there, and especially Sexton. Osman kept trying to do these ISO plays, and Sexton was getting pissed off because he was trying to run plays at the top. I don't know why they couldn't figure out what they were supposed to be running, but I think that Osman just being more aggressive like that sort of gave me a little bit of a feeling like, oh, okay, well, this might be a little bit of a different Osman in this spot. So I'm going to be well ahead of the field on Osman as well. Should play a boatload of minutes also. Really love the game stack, obviously. I will take shots with the guys who no one's going to play because if they both are healthy, that people probably won't go there. But I just am going to take shots with the new coach. They've definitely liked both Thompson and Nance. So I'm going to take a shot with those guys, but they're more flyers for me. The main guys are the big 4, Porter, Love, Sexton, and Osman. If we think Thompson is going to play his normal allotment of minutes tonight and he doesn't have a restriction, if he plays, I would be much heavier on him than I am right
now. My Cleveland exposure, I actually do have a favorite in here given ownership, and no, for me it's Kevin Love. It's just the easiest one for me. You want to know the truth? I mean, this 10% projection seems a little extreme as far as how low that is.
Remember the other day at 7K though, he was a 1%er.
Yeah, nobody ever plays him.
But you know what's crazy? They actually have more guys back than they did in that game, and a bigger slate. Try and explain this to me. People are just they just game log watch. It's ridiculous.
But I will say that for the same reasons that I like Porter when he's a little lower owned, for the same reasons I might not be as high on him if he's 30-40%.
What's his fail path? That's what I want to understand.
His fail path is the thing that you just kind of alluded to, that he sometimes just is a little out of control and he just has a bad game. He just does. And at 40% or 35% ownership, depending on the rest of my lineup, it seems like on a kind of pedestrian, but I'd rather just kind of take the safety of knowing that I'm going to get the Kevin Love, whatever it is, And
I think Porter is much safer than Love, just on my take.
You do?
Like both of them.
Okay.
I think bus path for Porter. I think he hurts you here if he gets you only 25, and I think that's a possibility. But I don't think that's the most likely possibility. I think the most likely possibility probably, if I'm looking at some other projection sites and some of the RotoQL people over here, they have him a lot higher. I shouldn't be giving away premium information, but we're talking about more like 7 to 8x is where a lot of people have him, and I think that's accurate. I really do.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's a really good play. I mean, I really like him, and I like the forward eligibility also over here.
But dumb question. So I'm looking at one projection site that's projecting for 38 minutes, right?
He played 40 in the last game.
Yeah, I know that, but I mean, I don't know.
So who else gets the minutes? Matt Mooney? I don't think so.
Yeah.
The new
No, you know what I mean? Like, it's certainly possible. You know, and Dellavedova and
Dellavedova, that's the answer. Yeah.
like you said, maybe there's some, maybe Osmond gets more minutes. I don't know. 38 minutes is just a lot to project.
Yeah, I do actually want to say that I actually kind of like Dellavedova if we didn't have the Wanamaker and all the Boston chalk, but I wouldn't be opposed to necessarily. I would actually consider making a lineup with like Dellavedova and those guys. I think there's a path for him here. I mean, he played almost 30 minutes in the last game, 29 minutes, put up 23 fantasy points. He only shot the ball 5 times, had 9 assists. They were running a lot of stuff for him, or he was running a lot of stuff for them, I should say. I think Dellavedova is an in play as a tweener, but I just, again, on Porter, I can see your hope, I think, if you fade him, is that he gets you 25 or 30. I don't think it's that he gets you 15. I mean, look, this is one of those things, probably famous last words or whatever, but I just am really having a hard time seeing how he gets you, like, in that many minutes, how he's going to get you less. He's also incredibly active in every facet of the game. I guess he could get in foul trouble maybe, but I mean, now we're reaching, and I just feel like I need to play him.
Sounds good to me.
All
Again,
right.
just make sure the rest of the lineup is accommodates.
Be chalkified.
Yeah.
Make sure you get Eric Bird in there, who's going to also be playing 10% again.
Unreal. So Orlando no. Next one I have is Oklahoma. OKC at Detroit, and there are going to be props coming to Mr. Firestone in a second. So first of all, from the Oklahoma City side, the usual yawners. Nobody really looks that great. Detroit is not tremendous pace type of team, and as a result, they're not going to project all that great. So Gallinari, okay, fine. Noel, okay, fine again. Chris Paul, Shea, these guys. I just don't think I'm going to end up getting there today. I just think there are other options. Detroit, best play on the board is much respect to Bobby to come up with him. It would have been even better if he came up with 2 games ago when no one had him. But even so, Brandon Knight was a really, really good play by Bobby a few days ago when he was going back to – was he going back to Phoenix or something like that?
Yeah, Phoenix.
I forget that he was going back to Phoenix. The guy's playing well. You know what I mean? And he's getting minutes and he's shooting it. And the kid ain't shy, so to speak. Man, good for him, man. I mean, he's been – I don't know.
I have a question about Brandon Knight. I've never understood this. Like, I get that he's a small guard and he's not exactly a true point, so he has a hard time. But why isn't he like a great 6-man somewhere? He's a really – like, I've never watched him and been like, oh, Brandon Knight doesn't belong on this court. He's a good basketball player. Like,
yeah,
he always has been too. And I've never really figured out what went wrong with his career. But now at his second go around in Detroit, feels like they're giving him a little more love. And I actually feel like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but he's becoming more in play because of it.
Because I will say it. I'm just going to throw it out there. I mean, I don't know what the ownership is, but I mean, and this is the way I look at things. Like, one projection site I'm looking at has him. Now, he's a little different price, but being a better point per dollar play than Mr. Porter. And if the ownership is really going to be that much lower, I would go right back to him. Now, he is questionable tonight, so I have to actually look at that. But I have no problem, chasing, doing whatever. I mean, the fact is, he's playing 25 minutes a game, and his fantasy points are creeping up every game. And all these 4, just so you know, in all these 4 games in a row, been on the road, right? At Sacramento, at Phoenix, at Denver, at Portland. I mean, that's not easy either. So maybe he's back, man. Maybe he can actually play. And this could be one of those weird guys that in a couple of weeks could be 6,000 and starting or whatever, especially with Detroit being Detroit.
And picked up. I mean, no Derrick Rose. Let's not forget.
Right. So
all those other games, by the way, were with Derrick Rose.
And there you have it.
Yeah.
So there's he's my favorite play, but then there's also, there's Christian Wood. He still projects pretty decently. The Steven Adams matchup isn't the greatest, but whatever. So he's fine. I don't know if he's gonna get there for me. Again, just the way my builds are starting to look.
Same price as Kevin Love.
Yeah. Well, I think he's a better play. I think Christian Wood in and of himself is a better player than Kevin Love.
Wait a minute. Hold on. You were just all about Love a second ago. And there was So how come if you like Love, shouldn't you love Wood then if you think he's a better play?
Come on, you can know the answer to that. Why is it different?
I don't know what you mean. Just the run back?
Yeah, because I like Wood in the context of the fact I'm going to play Celtics. I think that he's a better player than Christian Wood. Okay. You know what I mean? But I think like in and of itself, I'd probably put up Christian Wood against against what's his name? Like in draft, maybe if that still existed, I might rather go for Christian Wood than for Kevin Love.
I mean, the game logs are pretty similar, and yeah, I could see that.
I got
you. I'm sort of with you. I understand where you're coming from there.
Yeah. So, and that's pretty much all I have from the game.
Yeah, I don't want to have too much interest in this game. I do want to keep a note out, like keep an eye out to see what happens with Chris Paul on back-to-backs.
Okay.
I think, he's been playing them, but he played significantly less minutes. Well, I mean, obviously they got blown out in one of them, partially because but other than that, he actually just only played that one. I can't even find the last time. He played one other one earlier in this year against Minnesota. He was actually very good. I don't think this is the spot where I want to play him or anything like that. But if something happens and maybe he sits at, who knows? I'm just throwing it out there, like, because it's possible on these back-to-backs. If we do get some like sort of news like that, I would just you just play more Schroeder, who I actually like a lot anyway. So I feel good about that. And I also don't mind. I would then be much more interested in Shea, who I thought was going to kill it for me last night. Had a beautiful first half, and literally nobody played him on FanDuel, but ended up with 30 some odd, 35 or so on FanDuel. But anyway, I'm good with Shea. I'm fine with him. This team can't defend the point guards at all, or any guards. And I'm good with Schroeder. I actually think Schroeder is a good play pretty much no matter how you slice it. We are not going to have Danilo Gallinari tonight, which is probably something we should have mentioned before.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because of the back-to-back. He doesn't play.
Oh, okay.
So who do we look to? Steven Adams is too expensive. Dort doesn't do anything, but I kind of like his name. I think there's something to get here other than just the Schroeder, but maybe it's just that. Maybe look, I would have played Schroeder tonight. I would have considered him with Gallinari. It's a good matchup for him. He actually does play well on back-to-backs. Usually gets more minutes. The last one, forget about, because they got lost by 50 points to Milwaukee. But I think the usage, and he took a ton of shots in the last game. A rare game that he doesn't have an assist, because that was a tough game matchup with the Clippers, to be honest with you. I'm gonna just take a shot with him here. I think that there's a chance he could put up an easy 40 fantasy points, and especially if Paul is somewhat limited in any way. I just think he's a really strong play. He'll get some ownership, but nowhere near what I think I'll have him at probably, which is probably around 25%. And then on the other side, I'm trying to decide between these guys, because I think my favorite play is Svi.
Wow.
I also, again, my first look is always, especially these days, I'm always going to give the massive edge to the small forward eligible players. The problem is there's actually been some good ones lately, but on this big slate, just looking at it because of all the guard value, I feel like Svi makes more sense from that angle, which is also what will keep Brandon Knight lower owned, because he plays the guard position. So I would go Svi as my number one. And I mean, he's going to play minutes tonight. Like without Derrick Rose, he played 39 minutes in the last game. I think 38 minutes. I think that was with Derrick Rose, if I'm not mistaken. So I think him and Brandon Knight and Langston Galloway are all guys who you'd want to trickle in if you're mass multi-entering. And this is the day to do it. You get the $4 tournament. So let's get that multi-entry going. But Langston Galloway is my long shot play. And then Christian Wood is just fine. Probably going to be on about 20%. I'll be with the field. I'm not going to go crazy here. I feel like there's probably more value open with no Rose, but it's going to just be Svi, Brandon Knight, and Galloway, who I think get some of the usage. And I think Christian Wood is the other guy, obviously, but he's going to be pretty chalky, so I might look elsewhere. But I do like some guys off the board, so maybe I actually should give Woods a little bit more of a boost, because I don't really need to worry about differentiating in a lot of my lineups.
So I forgot to mention that before we started this slate. Yeah, I'm going to give this another shot. This the 150 entry here. I like the, I'm a cheap. Can I tell you? I want to do it when it's $4. All right, and so I am gonna try it again.
Don't let them bachelor us, because we're talking about it on air.
What's that?
Don't let them bachelor us.
Yeah. But I'm gonna do it, and so I have to have a little more open mind with some of these guys. That's why I'm kind of like going over a lot of different guys. So I guess moving on. So Utah Knicks, it's so funny. I was going to just like cross it off, and I'm like, all right, let me just. And then the next thing I did was I said, okay, is this going to be it's really funny. Is this going to be one of those slates where everybody concentrates on a whole bunch of games, and then Julius Randle just randomly smashes at 1%? And then I looked at his ownership, and even he's like 15%. So forget that. Here's the only guys I'm probably going to put in my player pool from this game. just kind of those upside guys that I like to play. Like I'll probably throw Jordan Clarkson in at 4,900. And for whatever reason, if he's really going to be like sub 5%, maybe I'll throw a Donovan Mitchell in here and there. I don't think I'm going to get to Bojan on DraftKings. I don't think I'm going to get to Gobert on DraftKings. I guess I have to do a little of them though, right? A little of him, maybe a little of Conley, but they're certainly not going to be priorities. And on the Knicks side, I mean, honestly, Randall was the only guy I really had a lot of interest in, so I don't know what to do. Pretty much as close to a cross-off as I can come up with on today's slate.
I agree. I actually can't find anybody to put in my player pool from Utah. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I get the idea of playing the lower ownership, but even the guys like I would play like Gobert, and then the high price for Mitchell, like get low ownership. It's kind of interesting, but not really. Like it's a big slate, like 8,100 for a guy who gets 50 like 1 out of 20 games doesn't really make sense to me. It's just you don't need that far of game theory stuff. I do like a couple of the Knicks. I really like Mitch Robinson.
Okay.
I just think like we've seen Gobert just bleed to fantasy points to centers. We also, the thing about Gobert is like you think, oh, he's going to get in foul trouble. He might, but I don't think it's going to be from Gobert posting him up. Like it's not the way that guy plays.
Right.
Robinson has
he just swats at people. He just swats at guards and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I first of all, I love his game. I'm a huge fan of basketball players that don't need the ball and you don't need to run action for them. It's one of my biggest issues with Julius Randle. I think he's very talented, but he's a great guy on a bad team and he's a terrible guy on a good team because he's never going to be the best guy to run the ball through. Anyway, Gobert you can just sort of plug in. But I want to play in this game. I want to play a little bit of Mitch Robinson. I want to play a little bit of Randall. I do think that the interesting thing is going to come down to like this is 7,700 now for 3 players that I have projected really similarly between Randall, Love, and Wood. Love definitely gets the edge for the same reason you mentioned. You want the bring back. But if Tristan Thompson does play, I think that he might be higher owned than these other guys are. And I still think that Wood, you're right, might be the best. They're really close, honestly. So I'm still leaning Love, but I do want some exposure to Julius Randle at a reasonable price. Like Julius Randle can go out there and put up 50 or 60 any given night. So it doesn't really matter what the matchup is to me. That's just where I'm at. So that's pretty much it for me. If this was a different slate guy for me, would be Bobby Portis. But this is not the slate.
I'm with you.
All right.
All right. So Orlando against Miami. Again, it's as close to a cross-off as I can come to. There are actually there are a couple of guys. So Orlando, I really don't want to play Vooch here. I really don't want to play anybody from Orlando. The Miami guys I'm interested in. I'm always interested in a little Butler, so he's going to look good. I'm not going to play Bam today. 2 guys that are looking at Duncan Robinson. He's just not that guy that I play, these 3-point shooters. Looks fine at 4,100. Crowder, I'm stretching, man. For me, it's really just Butler.
Yeah, I would give a shout out to Duncan Robinson for being probably the best, most effective 3-point shooter in the NBA this year. If you factor all things like George Hill doesn't take enough, even though he's shooting 50 whatever percent. But Duncan Robinson, man, that guy can fill it up, but he doesn't do anything else, especially with Butler and Bam playing. So Orlando's playing faster. I guess we can use that as a something. I don't know how to play anyone here except for Butler, and I don't want to have the same ownership. I want to be below the field some places, like I've mentioned a lot of plays I like, and so it might just be Butler for me. And it's funny because even if Butler gets like, I don't feel like he crushes me enough here at pretty high ownership, and I think it is going to be pretty high. I think that Vooch is still too cheap on the Orlando side, personally. It's a terrible – like I hate taking centers against Bam. I'm really impressed with Bam in every which way. I think he's a future top 15, 20 player in the league.
Wow.
Well, I might be exaggerating. No, it's possible. It's in the cards. Let me put it that way. Maybe it's in the cards. I mean, if you watch these guys play Miami, they run their offense through. Like he plays like a guard at times. Maybe let's say 25 to 30 or something. I don't like that I said that. It's a little too exaggerated. But I do think Vooch is definitely in play tonight. It's just he's a good basketball player and he's a little too cheap. That's my only argument for it. But I don't want to have too much exposure to this game, and the little bit I do will be it will be Jimmy Butler. And I actually do think I might play a share or two of Duncan Robinson. He's just shooting a little too much to where if he does get hot, like he can make like 10 threes in a game. Like he has that kind of upside. I mean, he did it already. He made 11. So I'll get a little bit of Duncan Robinson, but there's other value that I think is a little bit better. And I always hate not playing Bam, but I just don't think I'm going to go there on this slate.
Memphis against Brooklyn. We're going to, you think this is a game that you kind of want to play too. So let me just go through this. So first on Memphis, even though he's, obviously been priced, I won't say way up. I don't want to imply that he's too expensive, but he has an increase in price. Jonas Valanciunas is still showing up as a pretty good play, and it's no accident. He's been playing great. I mean, even in 3 quarters yesterday, the last game, he played really, really well. And where he's been, really killing it is on the boards. I mean, he's been getting just a ton of rebounds too. So he's been really, really strong. And Brooklyn has been very, very weak guarding centers pretty much as long as I've been playing DFS, right? And he certainly looks like a good play. Again, I wouldn't go crazy with him today, but certainly going to make that player pool, that's for sure.
Yep.
Other guys on Memphis, you could play Morant again. Always has that upside. I'm not a Kyle Anderson guy, but he's showing up as a decent $4,300 value. Dylan Brooks has that same shooter's issue that, if you get him at low ownership, he's great. If you get him too chalky, maybe not. But those are the guys on Memphis I'm looking at, really nobody else. And on Brooklyn, it was interesting. Spencer Dinwiddie last night got taken out of the game, and LeVert was just kind of left to just roll it back. And they were down 20 that game. And they just kind of just made a huge, huge run, and they just kept it going. And boy, oh boy, Karis LeVert, he's on a back-to-back, off an overtime game, but man, he's only 7,200. He's playing Memphis, and I don't know, man. I don't know if I could just X him out. Let's just put it that way. So he's going to be in. He's going to be in some of my lineups come hell or high water. And then again, boy, Jared Allen, is he done? I mean, they just don't want to play him ever anymore. I don't know, man. It's I've been chasing him several times, and I guess every once in a while he does get there.
Get there though for us.
He does every once in a while get up there, but with Jordan there also, you really need those 25 minutes. You just need them, and even that doesn't guarantee anything. So it's rough.
But I would point out that I still think he has upside on those minutes. Like just because he's been in the lower range lately. They've fluctuated this year. Like if you go back to last month, he was in the 30 to 40 range for like 7 games in a row. So I don't think they know entirely who they are right now. So I think that you're going to see that. I think there's upside for his minutes. Certainly downside always for him as well. Also, he gets into foul trouble a lot. So
Valanciunas is going to obliterate him.
Maybe. I mean, this one thing about Jared Allen, people don't – I know that centers destroy Brooklyn. Part of the reason is because the wings are so bad at guarding people that Jared Allen has to help all the time.
Okay.
And Jared Allen is one of the best all-around help defenders in the NBA. He's spectacular. Sort of like a Bam on the defensive end too, but a little bit more athletic.
So based on everything I just said, if you want a super uber troll pick at tiny ownership, you could pay $7,800 for Dinwiddie.
Jason Tatum was just announced probable.
Okay.
So we'll go back to that game.
We'll go back to that. But if you want an uber troll game, you could play Dinwiddie at 0%. And I don't know, man. I'm about to say, but you don't have to play anybody from this game. I kind of always want to play these Memphis games. That's the best. It's the best I could describe it. So I might actually get a little bit of that.
Yeah, my first instinct was to try and get some pieces of this game. I like taking shots on Jared Allen. I like taking shots on Taurean Prince in this kind of a matchup. I'm not we're not guys who are going to be afraid off by a bad game and low minutes. He didn't get the run because they were playing well with the other unit.
And he was 1 for 7.
Yeah, but he only played, whatever. He's not going to play 18 minutes.
Right.
So I actually am okay with taking a shot on him again. I think there's upside on those minutes. And even if there's not, I still think he can get there. But LeVert would be my priority. I think Dinwiddie, it is kind of, if you look at the game log, it's almost like a your turn, my turn thing with these guys. But, I mean, again, you got to give them the matchup upgrade because they're playing Memphis. So they're both in play, but I'm not overwhelmingly excited. I do like LeVert, though. It makes you nervous on a back-to-back, but what makes me more nervous is that I think he ends up having some ownership here. And I would like him at nothing because I feel like that's what it's been, but maybe I just have to suck it up. I think John Morant at nothing, at no ownership is interesting. How can we not have some interest in this guy? Like he's not his fault they beat Atlanta by 75 points. You know what I mean? I guess it is his fault, but I mean, this guy's a walking triple-double waiting to happen. Let's just he's almost too efficient. I wish he shot the ball more. He's really like having an unbelievable rookie year. He's the only rookie other than Jordan and I can't remember. Oh, Magic, who has ever shot. He's the highest field goal percentage, averaging 18 points a game of any other guard in history of the NBA as a rookie. So I love John Morant. I think that he's a guy I don't mind taking a chance on. I like Dylan Brooks here. He's just literally all the shots John Morant doesn't take and is unselfish. Dylan Brooks is more than happy to take those shots for you. And by the way, the other night, even though he played he probably was going to put up like 45 to 50 in that game if he shot the ball well. And he probably would have, or if the game stayed close. Even if he didn't shoot the ball well and the game stayed close, he probably gets like 40-something. So let's get Dylan Brooks while he's still a little bit reasonably owned at too cheap a price. Let's play him. I mean, the guy's taken more shots than any. I think he has like the 8th most taken shots of any player in the NBA, and he's 5,400. I think we got to take shots with those guys.
Yeah. So
over the last 5. Sorry.
Just piggybacking on something you said about Morant. I mean, the fact that he's just such a great passer, he makes him such a nice stackable play too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like if because he'll get his points, get his rebounds, and he'll facilitate other people from the team. So he's a very, very strong, GPP stack type player.
Yeah, and I'm okay with definitely playing that angle on Joe Val. I mean, the cool thing that's different for Joe Val in this spot why we might see him have more minutes. First of all, not only just is Jackson gone, they're like need to win. I mean, they're trying to hang on to the 8th spot in the playoffs. This is not the old Joe Val that we might see. So I think there still might be upside on those 30 minutes. I think he's interesting. A tad of Kyle Anderson, sure, but not. It's literally like an if he fits thing. I would rather go up 400 and play Taurean Prince personally, but I'm not like in love with both. And then Levert and Levert, Allen, and a little bit of Dinwiddie. But overall, like I thought I was gonna have more interest in this game than I do. Those guys are all like 20% or less for me, pretty much.
All right, going to Chicago, Minnesota. I presume Levine's still out. I guess Porter's going to play. I mean, I have him for about 20 minutes. Wendell Carter Jr. is creeping, right? Maybe 24 minutes, something like that. But I think that we hit the other guys from the last time we analyzed this game pretty nicely. We both got onto Denzel Valentine. I don't know how much I ended up playing him, but we knew that he was a good play. In only 20 minutes he got all those fantasy points. I didn't even know that. Boy, oh boy, he only played 20 minutes. He got 15 shots off. That's
I wasn't sure what exactly happened in the second half of that game and why the rotations were the way they were. It made me really nervous actually, because he was playing great and they still won the game. So I guess give him credit, but I don't really understand why he lost minutes in the second half. I really don't.
Yeah. So like for me, the top 3 guys are the same 3 guys I liked the last time. So. Well, Denzel Valentine, still at 3,800. I mean, I got to play him, I guess. And then Kobe White.
I don't think you got – I'm going to point out just about Valentine, like, before we get into it. This is not a good a situation because of Markkanen coming back. Porter is going to get a minutes boost probably. I just worry about if they can – I think there's downside on his minutes. There's probably upside too, but it's just a little – it's scary to me. Just want to throw that out. I'm a huge Valentine guy. That's why I wanted to point that out. But.
So for me, like there's Denzel Valentine, Kobe White at 6,200 until Levine comes back. I mean, he's going to be the primary shooter. But your point is very well taken with respect to Markkanen and Porter. Like if they're going to get like real minutes, I mean, those are shots. You know what I mean? That's usage. And if Kobe White ends up being owned, he's for me, the easy type of guy to fade, you know what I mean? Just because he just loves to shoot so much. But the guy, honestly, and this is not my type of thing, because he really isn't projecting all that well for this game. They did move him up in price, but I just think the safest guy you could play in a game like this might be just Satoransky. I mean, he's going to have the ball in his hands at the point guard. Again, he got kind of shortchanged on his minutes. It seemed that he got shortchanged on his minutes, but I guess not. He did have 30. He did play 30 minutes. He only had like 4 fantasy points to half or something like that. And because I had a bunch of him. And he ended up, he ended up doing fine. I don't know. He just seems to be this safest type of guy for me to play in this game. I don't even know how much of it I'll get. You know what I mean? But so Satoransky, then I guess maybe your point's well taken. Maybe White and Valentine are not quite as sharp with all these guys coming back. So I'll give it another look. But it is a 230-point total game with a short spread, so I want to think about this. Minnesota on the other side, see, you're not going to like any of this. So
Probably.
Yeah, so Minnesota on the back-to-back, Naz Reid off the smash game. I'm probably just not going to do it. And he's also going to be owned.
Oh, no,
I have no problem. What's that?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so I'm not, whatever. He looks fine. The other guy, again, this is going to depend on ownership, but I was really happy with that we played Malik Beasley yesterday, and he's fine. He's fine too. I mean, he doesn't look great, but he looks fine. Again, a guy who shoots, he is another shooting dependent guy. So if he ends up ever being really chalky, I'd have to worry about that. He looks fine. I have no problem with this. D'Angelo Russell. Boy, am I really not going to get a lot of exposure to this game after all that with a 230-point total? I don't know. I'll probably just have sprinkles, as they like to say, of these guys. I don't think I'm gonna get all that much. But my favorite guys, I guess, are Naz Reid, Beasley, and Russell. But I'm not too particularly, prioritizing any of them. And on Chicago, once again, just. Boy, maybe this is kind of a game I'm going to avoid more than I thought I was going to. I gotta look at this one again, I think.
I mean, Minnesota's playing so blisteringly fast. But then again, they just play the Pelicans, so maybe you're a little recency bias.
Yeah.
I think Kobe White goes nuts tonight. I really do. I think he had a day off. I think his floor is in the 30-ish range. I don't care too much about those other guys because while they get usage, this team plays knowing they have a guard who's going to take all the shots. Now that Levine's gone, and by the way, when Levine was here, the last 3 games that Levine played, White took 22, 18, and 21 with Levine on the court. I'm a big fan of White tonight. I'll be well over the field on him. Sure, I might have a sprinkle of Valentine just in case kind of a play there. And I do have some interest in Satoransky. I think that he's overlooked and going to play a lot of minutes. Did you happen to watch the end of that Bulls game the other day?
I did, but I don't remember it.
It was probably the ugliest. I've never seen a team. I think they were up 11 with 40 seconds left, and they almost lost. They ended up winning by 2.
Oh yeah,
giving the ball away, and it was horrible to watch. I was like, what is going on? But Satoransky and Kobe White were the big culprits. But I do think Satoransky's kind of interesting here as just a completely unknown guy that feels pretty safe. Feels like a cashy type of play in this type of matchup. And people sort of forgot that, with Levine gone, just because he didn't blow up in one game doesn't mean he's not gonna have that outing the next time out. He basically played the same way he does with Levine, just treating Kobe White like Levine. But I don't think that's necessarily a guarantee tonight. So I do like him a little bit. And then just a little bit of Naz Reid, a little bit of Beasley for me. I'll be below the field if Naz Reid's going to be heavily owned. I was all over him yesterday. I said if there's one guy who physically you think they'd want to try and get out there to match up with Zion, it would be Reid. As great as Zion's been, I shouldn't even say good. You're gonna need size on the court, but the one thing with Zion too is he's been bleeding some points to these bigs. His defense, as good as I think he'll be defensively, he's definitely not showing it right now. I don't know that this matchup is that much friendlier for Reid. On the back-to-back, I'm sort of just inclined to more stay away.
So we have 2 more games, and I do want to spend another 3 minutes after those on the Celtics because my numbers have updated on the Celtics. So I'm not going to take too much more time. You just basically have to add Tatum in, Tatum and Smart, and then some of these other guys just kind of become a little less appealing. But I guess we'll get back to it. So New Orleans against against Dallas. Luka's just kind of a lock. I mean, that's the best way I could describe it. He's probably going to be in every one of my lineups. I didn't even look at. I presume he's. Believe it or not, on FanDuel, for whatever reason, I didn't really have him in all my lineups on FanDuel, but I just don't see how I'm avoiding him on DraftKings. He's probably going to be really popular, but you know what? The combination of the value and needing raw points and all that stuff. I think he's probably my guy I need to get in the most. It was going to be Marcus Smart, but I guess these kind of go hand in hand a little bit. Actually, that's not necessarily true. But I do think Luka, Marcus Smart, but Luka is going to be probably the guy I make sure I have in for sure. We could talk about Kristoff again. He's once again not projecting all that great, and once again guy just keeps smashing. So I don't know what to do about him. I'll let you try to talk me into him. But if I'm going to play Luka, it's a lot to ask today to play both those guys. So we'll see. New Orleans, I'm not into anybody. It's as gross as it is. They all look just kind of okay. I mean, Ingram about 8K, Zion on a back-to-back about 8K. He's actually 8K. Is it really bad on a 240-point total just to take one player and just be done with it? I don't know, but I'm definitely playing Luka, and that's where my priority is.
Yeah, Luka will be the highest owned player for me as of this moment. Assuming nothing really weird happens. Well, I mean, something weird will happen. The price on Kristaps is actually fine. Like, you can still completely play him here. He literally had one game you wouldn't be happy with, and they won that game by like 35 points. I'm super good with Kristaps, but I don't like, having said that, I don't know that I'm going to prioritize him. I just might have some sprinklings. And I actually think that the nature of the way that they're playing right now in Dallas, you could actually argue that playing those two together is fine in this type of pace matchup. I actually think the spread is low on this game. I think if I was betting, well, I am a betting man, so I'm going to probably bet the over if this is where we're talking about being at, because I'm just watching these Pelicans crush the over every single game. So hard not to have interest. And look, no one's going to play Zion because they're afraid of him on the back-to-back and what they're going to do with him. I'll tell you right now, the fact that they're going to play him on the back-to-back means that they are trying desperately to get in the playoffs, as I can keep saying to everybody. Alvin Gentry came out and said that he doesn't want to be limited in how he treats Zion because he believes he's ready, basically. I'll take shots on Zion while no one's going to play him. I'll take shots on Ingram, who I actually like a lot, just from a matchup perspective tonight. He actually is a really, really nice draw. I don't really know how they're going to match up with him, to be honest with you. The thing is look, Drew and Lonzo went off last night and should always be in pools if you're going to be making tons of lineups. But it does worry me on the back-to-back. I do feel more like Ingram and Zion. Again, we still have the minutes for Zion as being fair, and if he's going to play 30-plus minutes, why is he a great play last night and a terrible play tonight? I don't have the answer for you, which means I think he's an interesting play. The guys I won't be looking to are guys like Favors. I had a long shot play written down, but it feels too thin. I was sort of speculating that Favors might be out because of the back-to-back, but he won't be, I guess. I don't know. I was sort of thinking about Melly for a minute, basically, is where I was. Yeah, it is a huge total with guys who I all have interest in, except for Luka. Everybody else, I would say around 15% is where I'd want to be, but even that might be high on somebody. Lonzo would probably be 10%. Drew would probably be 10%. I mean, Lonzo has been really, really, really good and never gets played. So maybe that's another way we could look, I guess.
It just hit me. It didn't just hit me, but Tatum being probable, you know what that means? That means that that your prediction of Giannis being low owned is probably going to end up happening, because now you can't. I mean, if you want to play Smart and Tatum, you can't play both Giannis and Luka. So this is going to be interesting how I approach this.
Yeah,
we're going to see.
Agreed.
Okay, so moving on. Boy, oh boy, if you don't like any of that, so Bradley Beal. Let's just see if I've learned my lesson yet. So let's talk about old sheets, and then we'll talk about new sheets. Here's old sheets. Bradley Beal had 11 fantasy points the first half, and his team was down by 30. He brought that, him and Bertans, who was freaking also insane in the second half, brought his team from a 30-point deficit back. Actually, I don't know if they actually took the lead at one point. It was pretty close. They were tied, definitely. I don't know if they actually took the lead. And then they ended up not getting there, and they ended up losing. He ended up with 55 or whatever fantasy points. Now they're going on a back-to-back at Portland. I mean, how can you play Beal at 10-6 on a freaking back-to-back after all of that happened in the second half? Okay, so that's old sheets. So new sheets, who's just kind of just seen this blow up in his face like multiple occasions. Be like, well, I don't know. Beal is playing basketball. He's in a game, and you can bet on him in DFS. Why not just do it? Okay. Forget all the other stuff. What's his price? I don't care. What's his back-to-back? I don't care. Who they're playing? We don't care. And he's 10-6, and he can get 70. So I have no problem just throwing him in. The other guy from Washington, who I alluded to earlier, is presuming, and I don't know why I'm presuming this, but they're presuming that for now, Thomas Bryant might sit on his back-to-back, and if so,
I think he's going to sit.
Then Moritz Wagner at 3,200 is just, your classic DFS type play. I mean, there's just very little else that they're going to do unless they, you get some AP action in there. At at 3K.
We might have Mahinmi back, by the way, tonight.
Oh, okay. As I have him presumed as, I haven't
probably
presumed
not going to play.
What's that?
You're right. He's probably not going to play, but he's in, as of the projections I'm looking at right now, he's still in there.
Right. So Moritz Wagner, he's going to rate to be a very, very strong play. And he certainly has just a carload of foul trouble risk and, all kinds of things that could happen where he doesn't get there. I will just tell you that right now. There are also all kinds of ways that he gets 40-40. So it's someone you're going to have to play and someone that you're going to have to not play all of, I think. I don't know. So for me, it's Wagner and Beal from Washington. Portland, I think that Lillard's back with his minutes, whatever restriction is going to be. I think it takes him out of play for me, and it also takes McCollum out of play for me. The two guys that are looking okay for me, one guy I don't like to play that much is Carmelo. More so on FanDuel, so I'll get to that there. But I will say this, and probably be owned and whatever it is, but if what's his name is actually out, Brian, and you're going to get Wagner starting at center. Hassan Whiteside can get literally as many points as he wants in this game. Presume he doesn't just – I don't know how he gets in the foul trouble. I don't know any –
run off the court?
Other than getting run off the – yeah, that could be. If he gets outpaced off the court, then sure. But aside from that, he's just he could just dominate everything around the glass. So he's certainly going to be in my player pool. But that's where I'm at. So
the thing that worries me from the Washington side of this game is this guy Peziksnis.
AP. So you got to get he's AP.
I can't get to that calling him AP. It just feels too weird.
I know, but the announcers do. That's the sick thing.
Oh man, I don't know where that's. It's when you did that with Andre Drummond and you said
right,
AP and I'm like, oh my God, Anthony Davis not playing. No,
right. Yeah.
The best play on this game to me, and this is a bold one. This is where I want to get bold. I think Shabazz Napier is the best play in this game, and I think he's an excellent tournament play. He'll be in a ton of my lineups tonight.
He played at Portland too, didn't he?
He played in Portland. We have no Ish Smith tonight. Back-to-back where Ish Smith brought him back last night. So even though he played 27 minutes, it certainly could have been more. You've got a lot of other bodies. I feel like he's like the last man standing on the floor for them tonight. Sure, they might get some Gary Payton minutes in there. He hasn't played more than 2 in a month, so I'm not going to be worried about that. I'm going to play Shabazz. That's my favorite play in this game. And I'm shocked at the actual projections on him where they are. I think his minutes are much more upside. The only thing that worries me is they don't need to go there. Like they don't need, Washington's not playing for anything really, but they're sort of like relevant enough to where they'll try to win. And I agree. Like, look, we're going to play some Bradley Beal. You know us. Like that's just how we play. You don't need any deep analysis to tell you that Bradley Beal can score 70 fantasy points anytime. And anytime he's low owned in a great matchup, even on a back-to-back, you should still go for it. He had a terrible matchup his last back-to-back, and he put up 70. So I don't know where I stand with this Wagner thing. I need to feel better about the minutes. Now, what my first thought was, on a back-to-back, you don't think they would play this guy very much because he's also been a guy who's had some injury issues this year, although he's been healthy for, a little bit longer. And if Mahinmi plays, I think I'm just out on him. If Mahinmi's out, I think we have to get some exposure, but I don't think you need to go nuts. I don't see him as a lock in any way. It's just where I'm at right now. I think Peziksnis will play some minutes. I don't know, man. I might have to reevaluate if we take Mahinmi out, because if I give those minutes strictly to Wagner, it's really, really hard not to see him as a value play, especially with that forward and not just center eligibility. Although the centers are not necessarily as strong today. So, and then on the other side, it's I guess it's nobody. Like, I got the only guy that I would feel comfortable playing on Portland would be Trevor Ariza. He's the only one. Lillard being back doesn't hurt at all. Lillard being gone didn't help him at all. This actually probably helps him having Lillard back, because you get more attention, and his whole thing is to hit threes in the corner, get some rebounds, get a steal or two. That's how he's going to get you there, but he's too expensive, so I just don't think I'm going to do it. I'm basically on a team that has a 124.5 point total. I'm basically just saying, forget it. Is there a chance that Damian Lillard comes back and plays like full minutes? I don't think so.
No.
But on the very off chance that he does.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I actually think some people are going to play. I mean, the matchup couldn't be better. Just throw him into one lineup. Throw him into one out of your 150. Do a one with him and Beal, and there you go. Play the mega chalk everywhere else. You'll be winning a tournament if they do what they can do. You get 150 from those guys, and then you get the chalk, whatever.
I will tell you this: with Tatum in, Luka being what Luka is, and people wanting to play smart, Bradley Beal is going to have like 11 people playing him. He's going to be, especially on the back-to-back, he's going to be solo owned. It's freaking scary.
It's crazy. And this has been the case, though, for a million years now, like with him. I mean, his projections never catch up to what his actual production could be. He's the tournament player. He's not the guy you play and you know you're going to get your 50 from him. Well, actually, you might just know you're going to get your 50, but you know that it's not like he's going to go too far below that, and he's always going to have a ceiling of 75 or 80. Like,
hey, I want to emphasize. I mean, I think that, and kind of shame on me for not even figuring that out, but I think that Napier plays a really, really incredible play. And I was about to say something really stupid. I was going to say that what if Portland just blows them out? Yeah, okay. Washington will be down by 30, and no problem. Beal make it all back in the third quarter. But that, remember, on a back-to-back also for Beal, I agree with you, man. I think Napier is super, super sharp here.
Yeah, I think that there's a real I really do. I really think there's a really good chance that he goes off tonight. I'm not crazy about his price, but
whatever.
I mean, at 4K here, to where he gets me 40 and he's 10xing, but I'll take 8x at 5K.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I really feel good about that one. And one guy I didn't mention earlier, I just want to throw this guy out as a wild card. For some reason, he's had really good games against this team. Miles Turner, and I nearly, again, I've mentioned this before, but I've nearly won all the money a couple times with a 0.1% owned Miles Turner against this Milwaukee team. So I just wanted to throw that guy out because we're going to get back into Boston, Cleveland real quick before we get out of here. But just want to throw him in there. And by the way, Tatum is going to change all the ownership on this slate.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know Rotogrind is just updated their project, whatever it is, but, I mean, obviously he's going to get a much bigger boost, and he's going to be much higher owned than people are suggesting. But so going back to Boston for a minute, so with Tatum in, what I think it does is, first of all, I don't think it – I don't want to suggest that it improves Marcus Smart's production because it obviously takes usage away, but it certainly gives him a few more assists. So I don't think it takes – I still think that Smart's a very, very strong play. I think that Tatum's a very, very strong play. And, you know, it's funny, like, for whatever reason, as far as where I'm looking, Wanamaker continues to look like a really, really strong play, and I continue to be a little bit suspicious. So I think my view is different in that I don't want to play 5 Celtics anymore, for example.
Right.
I might end up playing Tatum and Smart and nobody else, or maybe playing one of those two and taking a shot with one of the other guys. Maybe you could still play your the Carson Edwards a little bit, just because again he's not really affected by Tatum that much. You know what I mean? Like he's going to take some shots from him, obviously, but it's not like he'd be getting a lot of rebounds. So I think that to either have Tatum or Smart in your lineups is probably a pretty good idea. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. struggling with this one a little bit. I like Tatum, first of all. I'm fine with the price. Like, it does get to the point where it's like, okay, 1,500 more for Giannis, but at the same time, I feel like they hit the same-ish number enough times here, so I'm okay with it. I still like Smart too. I like Tice, and I like less of Cantor, and I like less
I
of
agree with
Jordan,
that.
less of Javonte Green, less
Yeah.
of Grant Williams.
Yep.
All these guys just get a little bit of a downgrade for me. Still think it's a great stackable game. No Romeo Langford for me anymore, I don't think. I actually think people might like – no, I just – the Carson Edwards thing is just you're going to play a guy with a heat check guy. I don't like that as much with Tatum, but I do still think it's viable like in tournaments, just with the limits at guards. And we don't really – I don't know. This Wanamaker thing is definitely – he's still going to show up as a good play that's all over the place.
He's going to pop in all the optimals, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I agree. And he does have all the guard run, but it could go to Javonte Green. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could go to Carson Edwards in a certain situation, or Romeo Langford, who actually was a point guard in college. Like, I'm just saying, like, there are some different ways this could go. I'm less into this as I was, but I'm still high on. I guess we'll get into it at my things, but I definitely like Tatum, Smart, Wanamaker. Again, I'm still gonna have 35 to 45% of them probably, but I'm just going to be below the field if they're going to be over half.
I'll probably try to find some money and get to Brandon Knight.
Interesting.
As opposed to Wanamaker.
I think it's interesting. I like that call. I mean, there's other guys you can go to too. Like,
right.
I mean, one thing is like Wanamaker's minutes projection is no longer. It's kind of close to Dellavedova's now. Like, you know, you could do something weird like that. There's other ways you can go. I'm going to go through my ownerships real quick before we get into the FanDuel stuff. Is there anything else you want to mention on this slate before we get out of here? You're good?
Yeah, I was just kind of like running an optimals in the background to see exactly what percent would Wanamaker would come up in, because that type of thing really drives ownership sometimes, you know. And I just think it's fishy chalk. I just do. I can't explain why. I guess just so many times playing him and so many times not playing him, he just
doesn't do anything.
He's just not a lock. He just isn't, you know. And it's basically what you said. It just doesn't do anything.
He does. That's true. And the thing is, like, the problem is he doesn't need to play that well to crush you. Like, he can get.
Wait, hold on. What?
30. What happened?
So the guy who's showing up at 100% ownership is a guy I didn't even mention at all.
Who was it?
Oh, no, they're just updating projections. No, forget it. Don't worry about it.
Who was it though?
No, they're updating projections. It doesn't make a difference.
Oh, okay.
It was going to be Justin Holiday. So
that would be really weird. If Justin Holiday is ever 100% owned, I can just exactly. You can make him 2K. I'll tell you to get behind the fade. Well, maybe not.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so go through your stuff for now.
Luka's my number one owned player, followed by Kevin Porter Jr., Brad Wanamaker. Well, those are one tier Luka, one tier Porter. Next tier down, Wanamaker, Antetokounmpo, Kobe White, Shabazz. Then we get just a little below them: Osman, Love, Smart, Tatum, Sexton, Brooks, Mikhailuk, Levert, Schroeder, Robinson, Mitchell Robinson, and that's it for the next group. That's pretty much those are the top guys that I've got tonight. I do think I'm going to get a little more jaw than I originally had planned on, and get him into that category. Get him in that category as well. And if we find out more about Wagner, maybe he makes it into that category for me. It looks like his numbers they're updating. Okay, that means we must have we don't have the word yet. Now Wagner is going to be tough to fade now. If we don't have, Gallinari's playing now. Oh my goodness. This is totally confusing. So lower the love for Schroeder. I think he's still fine, but definitely not a guy you want to prioritize anymore to like get into most of your lineups or anything. But he's still fine. And Sterling Brown was just added, which means George Hill is out. That doesn't really affect me much for the Milwaukee side. Just trying to catch up on some new notes. So
yeah, on one side, they updated this thing. Wanamaker's literally showing up in 100% of optimal. So he's gonna be a chalky part of a lot of people's multi-entry builds, and I do think that it's fair. It's a little fishy.
Yeah, it does feel like with him especially. I mean, he could play 32 minutes and put up like 6 fantasy points. Like it probably won't, but he's done those incredible feats before. All right,
Okay, so
we're gonna get into FanDuel. We'll do another video for you. Remember to like and subscribe, please. Appreciate that very much. Also, 4 Eastern time show on QLTV /RotoQL. You can look it up on YouTube. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys top the leaderboards.
sounds good.